Welcome to Bipolar Talks, the space where we mindfully explore the truths, the challenges, and the lived experiences surrounding bipolar disorder. If you're new here, please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast with someone who might need it. Your support helps us reach more people who are searching for clarity, hope, and real conversations. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic: early signs of bipolar disorder you shouldn't ignore. This episode is for anyone who's been wondering about mood swings that feel extreme, energy that shifts without clear reason, or behaviors that seem out of character. It's also for loved ones who are trying to make sense of patterns that just don't add up. The earlier we understand what's happening, the sooner we can get help. And that can change everything. So take a deep breath, and let's begin mindfully. Before we talk about early signs, it's important to understand what bipolar disorder is. At its core, bipolar disorder is a mood disorder, a condition where a person's emotional state cycles between highs and lows in ways that are more extreme and longer lasting than typical mood changes. There are two main types: bipolar I, where manic episodes are intense and often require hospitalization; bipolar II, where people experience hypomania, a milder form of mania, and major depression. And then there's cyclothymia, a pattern of mood swings that don't fully meet the criteria for either mania or depression, but still create disruption. These conditions exist on a spectrum. Each person's experience is unique, but there are warning signs that often appear in the early stages, some that we miss because we don't yet have the language for them. But today we're going to change that. Have you ever looked back and said, "Oh, that's what was happening? Let's get ahead of that moment"? One of the most commonly overlooked signs of bipolar disorder is a period of elevated mood or increased energy that doesn't feel like a problem at first. This state is called hypomania, and it can be tricky because it often feels good, euphoric even. You might feel more productive, more social, more creative. You might need less sleep but still wake up refreshed and buzzing with ideas. But here's what makes it concerning: you're talking faster than usual, or feeling like your thoughts are racing. You're taking more risks, financial, sexual, or social, without thinking them through. People start saying, "You're not acting like yourself." Your confidence turns into impulsive behavior. If this lasts at least 4 days and is noticeable to others, it could be an early sign of hypomania, and by extension bipolar II disorder. Ask yourself, is this energy sustainable? Or are you speeding toward a crash? Bipolar disorder often begins subtly, with unexplained mood swings. You might go from elation to despair without an obvious cause. And these shifts aren't just having a bad day. Here's how they often show up: irritability that escalates quickly, not just annoyance but rage that feels out of proportion; crying spells that come out of nowhere; feeling invincible one week and worthless the next. These emotional highs and lows often disrupt your sleep, your focus, your work, and your relationships, even before a full manic or depressive episode occurs. If you've ever felt like you're too sensitive, or that your emotions are on a roller coaster without your consent, this could be your mind signaling something deeper. Sleep is one of the most sensitive indicators of bipolar disorder. In the early stages, you might notice decreased need for sleep. You're sleeping less but not feeling tired. Or the opposite, sleeping for 12 hours or more and still feeling exhausted. Sleep changes are not just side effects, they are core symptoms. People often say, "I was staying up all night journaling or working on a project. It felt amazing." But later the consequences catch up: missed appointments, emotional exhaustion, burnout, or a depressive crash. The key question: is your sleep rhythm healthy and consistent? If not, it could be a red flag. Sometimes bipolar disorder reveals itself through depression first, long before mania or hypomania appear. This is where many diagnoses get missed, because the depression looks like typical major depressive disorder, MDD. But there are some clues. The depression starts young, often in the late teens or early 20s. Antidepressants don't work well, or they make things worse, triggering agitation or mania. You experience periods of feeling better that are unusually energized, not just not depressed. The depression includes psychomotor agitation, feeling physically restless or like you can't slow your body or mind down. If you've been treated for depression but something still doesn't feel right, it's worth exploring the possibility of bipolar disorder. Sometimes changes show up in behavior before mood. Friends and family might notice a sudden change in spending habits, unusual purchases, or impulsive investments. Increased social activity, especially for introverts who suddenly become the life of the party. Hypersexuality, a dramatic increase in sex drive or risky sexual behavior. A deep dive into spiritual or philosophical ideas, sometimes with a sense of grand purpose. These aren't always problems on their own, but when they're intense, sudden, or out of character, they could signal a shift toward mania, especially if they're accompanied by lack of insight. When you believe you're finally seeing clearly, while others express concern. One of the most significant risk factors is family history. If a parent, sibling, or grandparent has bipolar disorder, or even depression or schizophrenia, it raises the odds. You may have seen these patterns in your family but chalk them up to personality, trauma, or just the way things were. But understanding this connection early could help you spot signs in yourself or your children before things escalate. Mental illness often runs in families, not just in genes but in how symptoms get normalized. Breaking that cycle starts with awareness. Many people with bipolar disorder are first misdiagnosed with depression, borderline personality disorder, ADHD, anxiety disorders. Why? Because early signs often mimic these conditions. But the key difference lies in the cycling. If your mood, energy, and behavior change in episodes and those changes are distinct and recurring, it could be bipolar. Misdiagnosis delays treatment, sometimes for 10 years or more. That's why recognizing early signs is so essential. The early signs are often brushed aside. We tell ourselves, I'm just going through a phase. Everyone has ups and downs. I'm just emotional. But when these shifts start to affect your work, relationships, sleep, finances, or sense of identity, that's your gut telling you something isn't right. You don't need to label yourself right away, but start tracking. Keep a mood journal. Ask people you trust. Have you noticed anything different about me lately? Your body and mind send messages. The question is, are you listening? If you heard yourself in this episode, or thought of someone you love, don't panic. Bipolar disorder is treatable, and early intervention can make a huge difference. Here's what you can do. Talk to a mental health professional. Mention bipolar specifically. Track your mood and sleep daily for a few weeks. Apps like MoodPath, Dailyo, or simply journaling can help. Educate yourself, books, support groups, podcasts like this one. Don't self-diagnose, but don't ignore your instincts. The goal is not to pathologize every emotion, but to give you language and tools for what might be happening beneath the surface. Thank you for joining us today on Bipolar Talks. We hope this episode helped you mindfully reflect on the early signs of bipolar disorder. Recognizing these patterns early can be the first step toward healing, balance, and self-understanding. If this episode resonated with you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with others. You never know who might need to hear this today. Disclaimer: the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you or someone you know is experiencing depression or any other mental health issues, please consult a licensed mental health professional. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding your mental health. Take care of your mind. Be gentle with yourself.